You're listening to Scale Right Revolution, the show to follow if you're a high-achieving founder, business owner, or entrepreneur running a 7 to 8 figure company and you're ready to create your next level vision and make a bigger impact without missing out on life. I'm Tori Boats, an award-winning serial entrepreneur and the creator of an unconventional strategic advisory company where our mission is to help you revolutionize how you scale and pursue your most ambitious goals yet, while feeling lit up in your business every day. You deserve to live a fulfilling, wealthy life, balanced with family, friends, rest, and joy. So let's dive in. And before we do, hit that follow or subscribe button. Your backstage pass awaits. This is an advisory style episode. It means that I'm abandoning the typical interview format to deep dive into a challenge faced by my guest in their own business. It's your chance to peek behind the curtain and see how key decisions around growth and scaling really get made. You're going to love diving into this episode with us. So we are here on another episode of Scale Right Revolution with Meg Casebolt, and this is an advisory style meeting. So I want to start off so that you guys have a feel for who she is with her bio. Now, Meg and I have worked a little bit together before on another effort, so it'll feel weird reading her bio. Okay, Meg Casebolt is the founder of Love at First Search, an agency singularly devoted to helping online businesses get found in search results. Now, I'm talking Google, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and ChatGPT, all those goodies in AI. You don't want to forget about those. And she helps them turn new readers into leads, subscribers, and sales. Meg lives in Rochester, New York, with her husband and 2 boys and an 80-pound pit bull, y'all. She's an insatiable appetite for some of my favorite things too, s'mores. Like, who doesn't love a s'more, especially when they're ooey and gooey? Do you like yours burnt or do you like yours?
I like mine like warmly toasted around the outside. I want it brown, but not black. But I want, when I press the graham cracker down, I want it to ooze out the sides just a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm so the same. Do not burn my marshmallow. She also has a love of Broadway musicals and romance novels. So we go off on a tangent with romance novels because I've been geeking out on those lately. All right. So
I have a whole podcast about romance novels. I've written 2 of them. I love a good romance novel, but I know that's not what we're supposed to be talking about. So we can take that conversation offline.
This is a fun episode. I knew that you had the podcast, but I didn't know you also wrote them. So yes, we will be connecting. So I have to say, I was curious with Broadway musicals. I don't often get to them in person. I'm a ballet fan, so I watch more ballet. But have you seen Smash?
Not yet.
So it's a TV series about Broadway.
Oh, no, I don't actually watch that much TV. I'm really bad at watching TV. I will watch a movie, but for me to like sit down and commit to a series, it feels like such a big commitment to me that I'm very bad at watching TV now.
Yes. And it's not, I mean, it's got a lot of the behind the scenes Broadway stuff and they're rehearsing and practicing to put on this show, but it was so entertaining.
I love that.
Okay. So let's dive in. We'll get right to it. All right. So this is an advisory style episode. So we're going to have Meg start beginning with us on telling us the context of her business. So Meg, what is the context of your business? What does it do? And where do you find yourself?
Yeah. So my business, like I said, you said in the bio, was Love at First Search. So we help online businesses and local businesses to show up in search results. And, a decade ago, I could very easily just say, we help you on Google. We help you show up on Google. That was all that I really needed to say. And then over the past several years, it's been, also YouTube. YouTube is video search. YouTube is owned by Google. YouTube can help you show up on Google. They were sort of like they're collaboration partners in a lot of ways. I've helped podcasters show up in Apple Podcasts, but for a while it was just Apple Podcasts, and it was also Spotify and Stitcher and all of these different platforms. And then over the past few years, it's also expanded to be, and let me also help you show up when people ask for recommendations in AI. How do we get you to show up there? So all of the rules are similar across the different media formats. Not all the same, but similar. But then I have to readjust and reaccommodate based on what the goals are of the client. And so I work with these clients to help them get found across multiple platforms without needing to create content everywhere, because I think that's a big pain point for a lot of my people is I don't want to be on every single platform. I don't want to post on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and TikTok, and I have to create different formats for all those things. And then when do I have time to podcast and blog and it just it gets to be so overwhelming. So when I work with people, it's very much how can we create a centralized content hub that can help you show up in more than one of these locations. But that's harder to sell in a lot of ways because it can be harder to see results when it's a longer term strategy than, but I posted an Instagram carousel 3 times, so I did my marketing.
Yeah. And now when it comes to your business, are you primarily solo? Do you have a team? Are you an agency model? Tell us a little bit about that.
I grew it into an agency and then I let go of my team. So I have done both. I built it up to a 7-person team at one point. And it stressed. Can I swear?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it stressed me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because I had to manage the team, have more consistent SOPs and processes that had to be documented and updated as every single piece of software changed all the time. And I had to double down on my sales calls because I had to create enough work to support not just me, but also all of my team and the training and the management and the client services. And it was really hard. And as the economy has grown, or as the economy has sort of tanked, rather, I got it just gets really hard to support a full team when you are one person. So I am now in mostly a consultancy model. I have an online business manager who runs all of the behind the scenes of everything that I do. So that way I can be more forward facing. And it's just me mostly and my assistant. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times we talk about growth levers and finding the right lever for you personally. And I think that can be hard for business owners to kind of sit with because it's almost like you feel like it's selfish if you put your personal goals into your business. So it has to be all about your business. And I think we forget that especially as an entrepreneur, the business should serve the lifestyle that you want to live.
Yes.
And the type of business that you love running.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it lean founder first scaling, which is the choice to simplify, the choice to, I used to say almost go backwards, but you're not going backwards because your revenue or your profitability doesn't have to change. It's that your model changes, your structure, your team, what you offer, how you offer it can change. The criteria that you use to make decisions definitely changes. So there's room for all kinds of growth, all kinds of definitions of scale, and so many different levers to use.
Absolutely. And I think also, being able to say that I have had the agency and I chose not to run it that way anymore makes me feel more comfortable in being more of a consulting role because I know what it is to have the team. I loved all my team members. I didn't love the stress of needing to keep my top line revenue high enough that I could continue to support them too. But I loved managing the team. I loved hiring. There was a lot that I loved about that experience, but I just didn't want to continue it. And I think you have to become aware of what are your goals and what's your personality and what can your lifestyle support for you at any given time. And for me, it just didn't make sense to continue to hustle to have the agency so that I could have this same net revenue that I can get from working by myself.
Yeah. Well, speaking of having that future vision, I want you to share your vision. Now, listener, I do not mean corporate vision statements. Dry, here's a thing I'm going to stick up on my website and look like everybody else. It's more, where are you taking your business? What does the next level look like? And more importantly, what's motivating you in that direction?
I think a lot of my vision is based on the lifestyle that I want, which is a very time flexible schedule. Because I do have kids, I do want to my business is not here as the reason for my life. It is not my, raison d'être. It's not the thing that I want to put on my tombstone. It is a means to an end so that I can get my kids off the bus at 3:30 every afternoon and shut it down and not have to be at my desk until 5 and not have to pick up my computer after they go to bed and work and work and work, which is how it had been for a while when they were very little and I was still establishing myself. So my vision for my company is something that can continue to support myself and my family and to serve the audience that I want to serve in a way that I uniquely can because of my background and what I've learned, but also that I can do it in 25 hours a week. And that's a huge part of my vision is that I don't have to be working 60, 70, 80 hours a week in order to have this lifestyle of flexibility. I can sign up to take my kids' chaperone trip to the zoo next Thursday and still get my work done, Yes.
Those are the best.
It's the wolf one. It's the wolf chaperone trip. And I love that one because I did it for my now 5th grader. I did it when he was a 3rd grader. And I'm like, yes, I get to go check out the leopards. And, it's such a fun thing to be able to be the class parent, but also to have adult conversations.
Yeah, that makes it nice. I remember we used to have to sign in for a lottery and hope to get picked as a chaperone. And I'm like, please pick me. Because I picked the things that I would also enjoy. Like the pumpkin patch was pretty easy, but we did they go to a musical theater that's local. I'm like, oh, I want that one.
Yeah. I got picked last year to do the Susan B. Anthony House field trip too for the 4th graders, which is, feminist history and women's suffrage movement. And I was like, I would much rather have that one than like, here's an old house. Yeah. Here's a graveyard where the Civil War soldiers are. I'm like, I'm good on that. Give me the suffragettes.
You're like, I'm good. I want to go here. Makes me think of Mary Poppins and the suffragettes song. Okay. So we're going to hit into kind of the brainstorming time of what brought you here today. So you mentioned that you have a long-term retainer client. You love working with her and want to continue, but it may not be that she has the budget to work with you indefinitely. And you're also thinking about shifting your market a bit to work in a longer, deeper capacity than just a consultant. And then you also mentioned that it feels harder to sell lower cost. So having a retainer client, having clients with a larger budget is where you want to go. Tell us, what does that really look like? Like how does that differ from what you're doing today? What makes up that retainer client, almost like an offer or a package?
Yeah. So for many years, retainer clients were sort of my bread and butter when I first got started, and it was lower cost retainers, but more clients. So I was still doing a lot of design, and it was like, oh, you wrote a blog post, let me create the graphic for that and update the images for it and make sure that everything's good on social media. And I was doing much more of like a marketing assistant role when I first got started and had a dozen clients I was doing that for. And it was great because I felt like I had consistent income, but it was also stressful because I had 12 different bosses at a given time. And then as I specialized and niched into SEO, I realized that instead of being the one doing the updates on the website, because often those clients also had web designers, web developers. They had people who had built the websites, and I didn't always know kind of the back end of how everything was going to work. I took on more of a consulting role where it's like, let me work with your existing team to teach them how to behave and let them do the updates. So that way, if we stop working together, you're not beholden to me. You're not, everything isn't going to fall apart. I'd heard way too many horror stories of people saying, I used to have an SEO person, and when they left, my whole traffic tanked. And I'm like, well, if I get hit by a bus, I don't want you to be SOL, I want your team to get better, not just me to be the one to come in and be the savior and wave the magic wand. And if I leave you, then you're screwed. And so that's when I sort of moved out of the direct services role with my clients and took on more of that kind of consulting strategic partnership approach to things, where I would say, here's what I want you to create and write and optimize. But you have team members who can do that for $30 an hour, $50 an hour. You don't need to hire me for $200 an hour to do that work. Let's make it, something where I can keep my brain going all the time, and you can have team members who are learning from me. And that just felt really, really good for a very long time. And so that's what I did for a long time. And I had clients coming and going. I have probably, 30 or 40 clients that are always sort of in my world, and they'll come in and tap me when they need help with something, but it's not every month I'm doing a report for them, because that never felt good to me, to be like, I'm beholden to show you the progress that we're making when it's a team effort, but I am the one on the hook. And so I moved into being more of that strategic role. But then I had this one incredible client who it's an overnight newborn care agency, and they were having incredible results, and they were growing their team, and most of their traffic was coming from search. And so they wanted to continue to grow that, but their team was growing. They were getting so many leads that they didn't have the capacity to keep up with their marketing. And I knew their business well enough to say, do you want me to step in for a while and take on more of a hands-on role here, where I can be the one not just doing your strategy, but going into the website, making the changes I'm recommending, running your Google ads during periods of transition where, you see a drop in a certain market, and I can turn on the ads there, and I can be running things behind the scenes where that's the only thing I'm focusing on while you're out, making those relationships, hiring your team members, setting up the processes for the people who are boots on the ground. And so that we started doing that back in January of this year. But while they're going through this transition, I love being a part of the team, but I also know that I'm a big expense for them. And this may not be something where they can keep me on indefinitely, but I love the experience of being integrated, of being more of a team member than a consultant. But I don't want to offer that to smaller businesses because it is a big expense. And I like working for small businesses that have the capacity, that are growing, that are at this really interesting growth stage where I feel like my hands touching it can see it expand in all the right ways, because they're just ready to take off, and they just need somebody with my particular skill set to be like, here's how we need to optimize your website. Here's how we need to change your positioning of your copy. I can step in, I can make these changes. And then maybe they can grow to have an in-house team member who's more affordable than me in the long run.
Now, is this like what we see being called a CMO or a chief marketing officer?
Yeah, it's to an extent, it's that role. Yeah.
And you're also doing the hands-on. So, I think the point you describe in the company is pivotal.
Mm-hmm.
I've hired HR people like that. I hired I had, I guess maybe 50 employees at that time when I hired an HR. I probably had about 30. Because it was before we hit that sweet spot of all the benefits changing at 50 employees.
Mm-hmm.
And we outsourced HR. She literally sat in my office spaces with my team, and she was there a couple hours a day, a few days a week, and then on call and email. We did a lot of in-person management of the company. So it was way before virtual. And then it got to be where hiring in-house was more affordable. It made more sense. They could kind of be more flexible with where we were going with the business. So it definitely is a point that companies come to. And for marketing, especially when you're growing your leads and your customers, even internal marketing, that comes much earlier.
Yeah.
Than needing a full person HR team. So what I noticed, I'll just reflect back to you, is when you were talking about really being integrated, it it lit you up. It made you feel really good.
Mhm.
How many clients do you think you would want to have where you're having in this role with them?
I think maybe maximum 2.
Okay.
And I would be open to, be fully go back to being full-time or full-time-ish with one company, but I would need that long-term, you know, it's taking a job scares me right now. 2025, thinking about taking a job someplace versus being an independent consultant, I wouldn't it would be really hard it would have to be the exact right position for me to feel good taking a job, versus being an independent consultant. And even with independent consultancies, they can go away. So I think that I want to hedge my bets in a lot of ways to say I could do this for, 1 to 2 companies, but then keep those leads that are automatically generating for me from my referral sources happening in the background, because the idea of shutting down the consultancy entirely and working only as sort of that like intrapreneur role or employee role
Okay.
is it feels much riskier to me than it feels much riskier to me to have 1 or 2 clients than it does to have 10 or 20, which I think is so unusual. I think that there's this idea in society that jobs are the safest and most stable thing, but I think I've also been running a consultancy for a decade, and the idea of having one boss instead of having 10 clients is not it's really scary to me to think about doing that. Even if it's a great relationship like the one that I have with my current retainer.
Yeah, let's follow that thread for just a minute. So I'm
Sure.
not suggesting that now you become an employee, but how do you think, if you were to imagine in that yourself in that role versus being the non-employee where you're consulting for them, maybe you have 1 or 2 clients, how do you feel that your, I want to say power, control
Mm.
would be different?
Um, I think to an extent, I think it's that flexibility of, if I am your employee, then you get to choose when I work, when I show up to things. That textbook definition of employee versus contractor, I think, is where my hesitation would lie. In addition to, I have non-competes with certain clients that I work with where I don't work with other people in that industry because I wouldn't want to share trade secrets. But to say, one of the things I love about being an independent consultant is I get to choose exactly who I work with. And I think if I went into an employee relationship and something went wrong and I had to get out of it and I had to go back, I think it would be really hard to backtrack. And I get to pick and choose the projects that I work on, which is really delightful for me versus, going in and especially if I were to take an employment job at like a marketing agency where then they choose my client roster, I think that would be really difficult for me.
That's that's definitely another side, I think. So
Mhm.
we have like almost 3 options on the table. We have the employee, or even if it's an independent contractor where you're working in that almost like an employee role.
Yeah.
Then you have the agency where you're a member of an agency. And you're right, they're going to choose your projects. They may have oversight on how you work.
Mhm.
And then there's still being completely, I don't know if we have 3, but there's being completely independent where you are choosing. I think
Well,
probably
but there's nothing long term, where there's no retainers, where it's much more of a
yeah,
one-off consultancy or
yeah.
short-term projects, which is where I had been for a long time. And I enjoyed it, but it was also, it's like, which risk do you want to take is a huge part of this. It's, do I want the risk of being an employee for somebody and I have the stability of a paycheck, but I don't have the flexibility of what time I work or which projects I take on? Or do I want sort of an in between where I have some stability of income and some say over the projects that I work on, but I also am beholden to a team? Or do I want to be completely independent and choose all my own clients, but some months are just dead? And
Right.
it's all a risk assessment.
I want to go into something that might be a limiting belief or an assumption,
Sure.
which is you said one, it's hard to backtrack.
Mm.
And I think what you mean there, tell me if I'm wrong, is if you become an employee and you let your your leads go,
Mhm.
then how do you become a short-term project person again? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, help me understand what you mean by that, because I think I might have it.
Yeah, that's about what I meant, is, like, let's say that I were to say, I took a full-time job, I'm shutting down the consultancy, and the love at first search is done for, and then something bad happens with the job, and I have to go back to being not have to go back, I choose to go back to being a consultant, and then I have to rebuild that entire pipeline and wake back up all those leads, and the people who are sending me leads now would say, "Oh, well, I have to find someone else to do this," and then I lose being the first choice for all of those web designers and copywriters who have me in their back pocket.
How fruitful are those referrals for you now?
About 80% of my income is referral based.
Oh, so that's pretty huge.
Yeah,
Well, today it's 80%,
right.
but it's not you still have dry months, right?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah, slower months, I would say. Yeah. And that's why I love having a couple of, even smaller retainers, but even all of those came from referrals.
okay. And then the other assumption is that you won't be able to choose when and where you work. You won't have the flexibility as an employee. Is there a world where that may not be the case?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I would have to really like, if I were to ever go back to an employee role, it would have to be the, like, perfect storm of a job.
So it doesn't sound like that's what you're doing right now. It
No.
doesn't sound like you're like, okay, I'm going to actively look
No.
for this role.
No, I have headhunters coming into my inbox all the time that I ignore because I don't need to have that consistency. I don't know why we even started talking about it because it's not really something that I'm considering, but it's more of a CMO role is what I would be
Yeah.
leaning into versus a employment position.
So fractional CMO, if
Yeah.
you're taking on more than one.
Yeah. That would be kind of an ideal situation for me.
Okay.
Especially because I've been running group coaching programs for smaller businesses for so long and selling and maintaining them is becoming harder and harder over time.
Okay.
But I love my small businesses. I love my
I know, right?
solopreneurs. I love being able to help them. However, they are also sometimes the biggest red flags I have, and the biggest customer service issues that I've got are the smaller businesses, and so I have to weigh that in the process too, you know?
Yeah, I remember I don't know where I got this analogy, but it has stuck with me for a long time. And it's about ateliers or fashion designers. And they're like, oh, I really want to have a line in Target. And so the adage is, well, if you have a line in Target and you sell 30 blouses, does that give you enough money to afford your studio and your fabric and you're doing your shows and hiring a seamstress helper person? They're like, well, no, but I really want to have affordable fashion. And it's like, well, what if you have a name, a luxury line first and have that luxury line give you enough money and savings so that you can afford to have this loss leader or to have a less viable product as this mass market until you build up the name recognition to then sell enough of the more affordable line. And it's similar to Massimo. I probably butchered that name, but they started out, really high up, and this is what they only dress the stars on the red carpet and everything's couture and custom. And now you can find them at Target.
Right. In
So,
fact, I only know them from Target. I didn't know their couture line.
right. But that's kind of that story. And, I wouldn't bring up Christian Siriano because he had from his, Project
Project
Runway,
Runway.
right? He kind of went into mass market from that show with Payless. He had a line in Payless, but that was really the on the backbone of the show and the uh, the distribution that they have and the name
Mhm.
recognition and the brand and all the money that they have backing that. So yeah, so don't use that. Don't use that as your inspiration because it's a little off. um, but yeah, it's almost like how can you take on the clients that can afford to pay a rate that you have the capacity to serve, so then you have the ability to have other features for people almost out of overflow. Um,
And that's sort of the model that I have now is my retainer clients, my longer term clients are the ones that pay my bills. And then once or twice a year, I'll run a launch for a group coaching program because I love the group coaching program and I love the
yeah.
energy of it and it feeds my need for service. But if I were reliant on that as my primary income and I needed to run launches all the time and run, the funnel to the Facebook ad, to the lead magnet, to the webinar, to the evergreen webinar that's always enrolling that has a 5-part blah 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 video on I would hate that. I would hate that. I'm sure it's really good for lots of different business models. I have worked with those businesses to help them get organic leads so that way they become less dependent on the meta ads. But for me personally, being always on instead of saying I have 2 or 3 big launches a year, and it's half the time on my big launches, I will, do the email outreach to people and let them know about my group coaching program. And then I'll sell a couple consulting jobs on the back end of it to people who weren't a good fit for the group coaching. So it's not just, here's my low cost offer. That's the end of it. It's more like, let me get back into your inbox and show you what it's like to work with me. And hey, that offer doesn't work for you. Great. What else can we do to work together? Or, getting back in front of people that I've already worked with and saying, you don't need group coaching. You just need an update to your plan, or you just need a consulting call. But it's a good opportunity to sort of re-engage those relationships on a consistent cadence without necessarily feeling like I have to be evergreen launching every week, every month, every year, always growing, because that just felt unsustainable to me when I was on a more launch model approach.
I think it's really important to acknowledge this kind of almost like a turning point or the realization point that, yes, we talked a little bit about how hard it is right now to sell low cost. And part of that is, I think group program kind of fits into that, even though it's not quite the same as maybe a slow or a liquidating offer. I guess self-liquidating offer. Anyway, it's the constant launching.
Wow.
And you have a healthy pipeline of referrals and experience doing the consulting call that leads to larger projects.
Yeah.
So I think that really tells us that, are you sure you want to go this direction? If I were to say that, yes, you're choosing to pick a 2-client fractional CMO direction, how does that feel?
I would love to just do 2-client fractional CMO and then consulting calls on the side. I just don't have the second CMO client. I don't know where that lead is coming from.
Okay. And your current long-term client may be short-lived.
It may be a year-long contract that ends in January.
Oh, okay. Oh, so this January.
Yeah, so it could continue, but we aren't entirely certain what's going to happen between now and then in terms of traffic and growth and all that. So, it's and that's exactly why it would be intimidating to limit the number of clients when I know that not all clients are going to last forever, which is just normal.
Yeah.
Never is a client going to last forever or a job going to last forever. So,
all right. So I think we have actions so far, which is you have a re-engagement strategy. You have people you can reach out to for re-engagement, and you have an offer idea in mind, which is this fractional CMO job. You also have a job description. What would you be doing for them? I think that could be fleshed out. And then you have to have a conversation with your current long-term client on longevity. Like, what are they seeing? What are they projecting? Because they're going to have revenue projections, especially now in October, for what it's going to look like next year. And if not, that's okay. Your conversation with them might spur them to say, oh, we really need to put some thought into that. How does that feel?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think also there's a part of it where you just said, like, you have a job description of
Yeah.
what that CMO, fractional CMO role could be. And that isn't something that I've been actively engaging with my referral sources or letting people know that I do. It's been more of a behind the scenes opportunity. And I think sometimes it's okay to do a behind the scenes. This is my favorite client. They need this help right now. Let me create an option for them that makes sense for them
Yeah.
and for me, and then see if I even like doing it. And as it turns out, I love doing it. And maybe there's a way to stay, engaged with this client even at a lower price point and scaling back in some way and bringing the team in more, but staying, cutting my monthly retainer by half, but still staying engaged and then finding someone else to grow at that level. Like I think that there are ways always to adjust what our service offers are based on what's actually working and what our lives need and what our capacity is. So I don't think this needs to be an either or with this existing client, but I think if I do want to continue working in this capacity and this role, it's something where I need to articulate what that would look like and start
Mhm.
speaking to my referral partners. Oh God, do I have to go back on LinkedIn, Tori? Don't make me go on LinkedIn.
Well, do you post already?
No, I hate it.
Oh, well, I
I
mean, do
hate
you
it
post
there.
anywhere?
I don't post anywhere. I have an
You're
email
mostly
list and I have
Summit?
referral sources.
Ah, well, you do summits.
I do, but I don't expect summits to lead to,
Yeah.
multi-thousand dollar a month retainers. It
Okay.
could. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
There is nothing in my paper. If you see me looking down, I write to get ideas out of my head. Um, Nothing on my paper says you need to be posting on LinkedIn.
But, when I think about the networking effect of let me get in front of the people who know the people who would
Yeah.
have this type of opportunity, my brain goes to, "Oh, they're on LinkedIn." Because that's what so many business coaches say. It's like, "Oh, you need to be posting on LinkedIn." And as far as I'm concerned,
Mhm.
LinkedIn is it's another social media platform that's professional, but I feel like AI is sort of ruining it.
Well, you are first, you're an SEO expert. So wherever you're posting, whether it's LinkedIn or your blog, even turning pillar content into an article in LinkedIn and letting it just live there.
Yeah. I mean, this is totally the cobbler's kids,
That's
the things that I
yes.
would tell all of my clients to do.
Yeah.
And then when it comes time to do it for myself, I'm like, "Oh, that's so much work."
Who wants to do that? Well, who wants to have even though we can set up AI, like AI does my turn this into a LinkedIn article, please, for me. I still have to launch my AI. I have to tweak it because it doesn't quite get it right, even though I've trained it for hours on my voice. So there's work, but putting that aside, like that, yes, maybe, but I think you have this first, you have a rich source of re-engaging folks that have worked with you before that might be ready
Mhm.
for more commitment, especially if you put this offer in front of them. Hey, what if I take that off your plate? Hey,
Yeah.
what if I do this for a year, 9 months? Maybe you do a short-term project, 3 months, and let's see how it goes. Those are the things that they might be able to say yes to, see what you're really capable of for their business, and then that turns into this long term. So I think we have a lot of different ways of getting into that long-term relationship. The fun part for you really is what have I loved doing for this client and tacking on the benefit of doing that thing. Like, why
Yeah.
do they need it versus because the last thing you want is for a client to say, well, I don't think I need that. Or, or that's a one-time project. I want to pay you to do this project, and it's 4 weeks, 6 weeks long, and then I think I'm done. It's painting that picture of here's the benefit of having me integrated, and here's what I've
Mhm.
done for my client. Here's why it's not a 6 week project. Or let me do that 6 week project, and then we're going to be talking about how do I continue on with you? Because I think that would be a great way to come in when they're not quite expecting to hire a CMO role, but
Mhm.
they need one. They have the budget for it, but they're thinking in projects. So how do you shift their mindset from project-based to longer term, it's taking that project on and then having that follow-on discussion with them. How are we going to continue this work together? Here are the things, here's the laundry list of things that you still need that I can do for you. And then it becomes a different kind of conversation. I think that might be one way to find that second client, and then that third client to replace. And we don't know if we have to replace that person. So having that conversation, I think, is going to be key. How's all that landing as a possibility?
It's always, when you're known for doing something and you make that pivot, there's an identity crisis that goes along with that, and I think that this is absolutely something that we were talking about on the summit that we did together, where it's like every time that you pivot your services or you change the way you talk about things, you have to re-identify what your role is, what your boundaries are, what that looks like, and who the ideal client is for it, and who is the red flag client that you need to avoid. And I think part of my, I don't even want to say hesitation, part of my risk assessment here is that I have spent several years growing an audience of people who aren't ready, who are just like smaller businesses. They wouldn't be ready. They wouldn't have the budget for this CMO type relationship, but they desire it.
Yeah.
They would want somebody to step in and do this, but they don't have the infrastructure, the team, the capacity, the budget. It would eat up their entire budget, not just their marketing budget. And so there's a part of me that I think is resisting, taking this and putting it as a sales page on my website or circulating that I do this, because I think there's going to be a lot of tire kickers who are in my audience who have been waiting for an opportunity to work with me, who want more of a hands-on support, but who don't necessarily have the infrastructure to support a CMO role. And there's a hesitation there to be like, oh, I'm going to have to take a lot of sales calls and say a lot of no's. And
well, what if you put your pricing right there on that sales page?
Yeah.
You should not be considering me if you don't have this as your starting budget.
Yeah.
Even if it's to say, hey, come in and talk to me about a project. My goal is to do so well for you that I become instrumental in your team and we work out a longer term relationship, because that signals to people right there, oh, I can't just have her do this one thing for me because she's going to expect, I'm going to let her down. She's going to expect to continue working with me. And I don't have the budget for that. That can be part of your intake.
Yeah.
Do you envision being able to support a full-time or a part-time? Because if you're doing 2 clients, whatever number of hours, anywhere from
10 hours a week. I don't know. We'll just make up a number.
You can't put hours because you don't want to be hourly.
I don't want to be hourly, but
you could say a full-time or partial time resource. There's some way to say that, but I think if you put that up front, what do you think will happen with your audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Of the people who aren't a good fit for it will know that it exists, but not be the ones who are asking questions. But as soon as you put it out there into the world, it becomes much easier to say, oh, I know somebody who does that.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what I tell my clients to do, which is put it out into the world and give Google a chance to give you feedback on it and see what happens. But a lot of businesses just testing things out and seeing what happens. So yeah.
Well, you mentioned something really interesting though. You said identity crisis. And then you didn't talk about identity yourself. You talked about the reaction and the work, the yucky work of fielding 80 discovery calls where no one actually qualified, and then having to say no and feeling bad about it. I think that is different than the identity of now I don't want to say up leveling, but you are serving a different level of client.
Yeah.
And that is a different identity.
Yes.
So do you have a bit of that second type as well?
I think the identity crisis, I think I've gone through the identity crisis of that one now. It's just more of a positioning piece.
Okay.
Of where, and maybe it's not even at this point identity crisis, because I've been doing this for the better part of a year for this client. I've been doing it on and off, in more project-based or lower cost relationships for a while. But maybe the way to think of it is more like, how many offers can I sell? And how many people can I support? And I love serving the small businesses and soloists in my group coaching program, but that might be the thing that has to go if I end up needing to be able to support more of these larger clients. Or I think it's more of not wanting to spread myself thin by having so many different service offers that I can't do well at all of them.
Yeah. Well, what if it's just a plan, like an offboarding plan? When I get here, I start to have the conversation with my group program that it's going, you're sunsetting it at a certain time. And here's what that looks like for those clients. And then then you're able to make that shift. You're transparent, just speaking to what it is. You don't have to do it prematurely, because you might get into this, find another client and be like, I thought I would like it, but, or maybe the market shifts. And, I think, would it be helpful to kind of flesh out what that might look like? Maybe it's, for instance, I have 5 clients who are big project based who could become retainer. And I'm going to do 5 of them. I'm going to try to sell 5 of those packages where it's a larger sum deliverable. And then I'm going to see how that goes and see if I can sell 2 out of that 5, which is a giant ratio, I realize, into this longer term retainer. And then if you have 5 at a time, maybe you sell 5, maybe you sell 3 and see how that goes. You sell a couple more, maybe you get up to 10. But if you're always thinking these larger packages are supposed to lead to these 2 clients, then I think it'll almost give you that bit of stability that you're looking for of, well, if I put all my eggs in one basket, then
yeah.
But if you're thinking, I'm not going to sell a bunch of low cost or group programs, I'm going to sell packages, and that's going to lead to something else. It almost makes me think of an architect. You're now at the architect level where they're always doing some kind of sales call to bring in a remodel, but they don't win all of the bids. And it's not the same as launching all the time. Maybe you're doing it 2 or 3 times a year, meaning you're reaching out to your referral sources and people that have been referred to you and past clients 2 or 3 times a year to sell packages that become retainer clients. What is that? How does that feel? Is that something that's a possibility?
It's certainly a possibility. I think that this is the direction that I'm already heading. But the idea of letting go of something that I've loved doing is also hard. But I think we all have to be constantly evolving. We always have to be leading that evolution and listening to what the market's doing and seeing the writing on the wall. And I'm noticing that my lower ticket offers and, smaller businesses that I'm working with are harder and harder to sell to than they ever have been. And part of that may bounce back when the economy does, but maybe I'm not the right person for them anymore. I don't know, and I think this is the difference of, and maybe this comes back to the first question you asked, which is what's the vision of who am I best at serving? And who else would, and is this a calling? Is this who else would step into this void if I left it behind? Because I think that there's a lot of shady people out there who will give you terrible marketing strategies in order to get you into something that isn't going to work as well. And I feel like almost this ethical dilemma of, I want to serve people with really good, solid, science-backed, evidence-based marketing advice. And I don't know who else is doing that in the SEO and AIO space at the level that I'm doing it at, with not beginners, but smaller businesses.
Yeah.
And not an agency, and not somebody that's going to hook you into retainer and not tell you how things are going. But I can't afford to provide for myself and hit my revenue numbers based on the volume of people that I'm speaking to in the current audience that I have at my conversion rates.
I don't
So
think you have to leave it forever.
yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge that you are considerate of having ethical practices, taking care of your clients.
Mhm.
You're having fun doing that. Is the fun that you're making a difference for the folks, or is the fun the work that you're doing with them?
I think it's the relationships that I'm building with them. And
So you're gonna
the
continue to do that, yeah?
I don't know, if I let's say that I just go down to 1 or 2 clients. Let's say that I go down to 10 clients, but they all are larger business or larger small
Yeah,
businesses.
yep,
Let's say 10 employees or more
yeah,
versus 1 or 2 employees. If I make that shift and then I lose the connection to those more not quite startups, but
yeah.
smaller, um, will I miss that beginner's energy? I don't
Ooh.
know, you know?
Well, who's to say that those people can't stay on your list and that you're not continuing to put out an email to them once in a while, a practice that you saw? Or, hey, if your SEO person is doing this shady tactic, red flag. And oh, by the way, I met somebody, because you're still going to have the relationship with the other business owners that you've been building. And what happens when you find another person that you trust and hand off? Like that could be part of your ramp. We're
Yeah,
building
that
a ramp here.
offboarding, yeah.
We're not doing it tomorrow. So part of the offboarding could be, hey, friends in my industry or your online business friends, who do you know? Who do you trust? Who do you listen to? And then you can vet them. And it may not be, oh, I'm going to spend 40 hours vetting people all at once and taking all your time. It could be an over time. Part of your plan is, how am I going to offboard into this new business model?
Yeah.
Would that be something that's a potential
Yeah.
solution for this for right now?
Yeah. That's definitely something that I'll look into and sort of keep my ear to the ground of who else is doing this in a way that I think is not like the right way. I don't wanna seem
Mm.
judgmental about it, but in a way in a way that will get results without being, over promising and under delivering or, feeling a little sketchy or shady. Because I think that that's common in all marketing, but especially, you hear a lot of snake oil salesmen in SEO that are pitching
Yeah.
you those cold leads of, I'll get you all the traffic," and it's like, even now it's even I don't wanna say worse, but it's more in the rise of auto-generated cold AI pitches that are just complete garbage.
Well, is that why I'm constantly getting headhunted by people on Gmail addresses? Like, come on.
Uh-huh, come on,
Northrop
right?
Grumman is not headhunting out of Gmail.
No, no, just like all the text messages that I get that it's like, your New York State, you got a ticket, and we're gonna take away your license, and here's a phone number to call in the Philippines.
Yeah, you're like,
Pretty sure
no.
the state of New York is not based in the Philippines.
Yeah.
But you almost
Yeah.
got me, the scams are wide, and even in the service provider space, sometimes I think there are people who have very good intentions and maybe just don't have the experience, but they want to help, and then people come to me after they work with those people.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
the fall what's a fallback? That's not right,
all
though.
right. Yeah.
The gap
Mm,
filler, the
yeah.
fixer. I'm a fixer.
Corrector fixer.
Yeah, you know?
You're the Holmes. You know that Holmes of Homes, where he
N
comes in after those people
Oh.
reno and they botch the job and the rain comes in and it turns out it wasn't inspected and they cut corners and he's like, "I'm gonna fix it." You're like,
Yeah,
"Holmes
I
of
do a lot
Holmes."
of that, especially people who are like, I think that I may have had people coming to my site from SEO or AI and I didn't know, and then I hired a web designer and they said they knew what they were doing, and then all of my traffic tanked and I don't know how to get it back, and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we should have had this conversation first,
Yep.
but you can't go back in time."
Yeah. But there is a place for those people. Once you have your own referral database, now you become the person referring folks to that next person,
Yeah,
the person that can help them when they don't fit your area.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't think you have to worry about not having a plan for them, because you already feel it. You're already
yeah.
making that plan.
It's not an abandonment, it's just an
Yeah.
adjustment.
Okay, so as we put a bow on this conversation, we talked about a lot.
We really have, my goodness, Tori.
Yes. And I think you have some actions in some way forward toward investigating
Yeah.
this new direction. Does it feel like a decision point yet or an investigation?
No, I think it's an investigation. I think it's maybe, putting together a job description of what I've been doing with one of these clients and sharing it, maybe not even publicly, maybe it's just a Google Doc. It's not
Oh,
a page on the website. It's just going, "Hey, Tori, you and I had this conversation on this podcast. Do you know anybody in need of this type of service? Let me know if you can think of anybody or if you want to talk about it for yourself," or, like those kinds of shoulder tapping conversations of, "I have been doing this for a while behind the scenes. I only need one or two clients to do this with. Do you know anybody?" Just relationship building and the relationship marketing. And I think that's something that people are more and more talking about, but that's how a lot of these businesses grow. It isn't, let me go put up a meta ad, let me go post on LinkedIn a million times. It's, "Tori, do you know anybody who would be a good fit for this? I'd love an introduction." And I think that's where I need to start this direction.
it sounds like you're comfortable making those kind of outreaches.
Yeah, because I have spent a decade building up the network.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said. Okay, so actions. We're still in explore mode.
Mhm.
I don't want you to explore forever because I think there's beauty in getting this document out there.
Yeah.
So is that something that you can commit to?
Yeah, I think within maybe 6 weeks, I could get together a document and start to ship it around to
Okay.
the inner circle, we'll say. Like, it doesn't have to be send it out to thousands of people on an email list and say, "I'm
10,
doing this now."
5
5
people a
people,
week.
10 people. Yeah.
Okay. So what if you do 5 people and you do it 5 people a week for 90 days? See what kind
Mm.
of traction you get.
Yeah.
Because 90 days gives us enough time to really figure out if it's working, learn from it, tweak it, fall behind, and go, "Oh crap, I'm supposed to be doing that." And it gives you that point at the end to measure. How does this feel? How is it working? Do I need to shift my approach? So I think that could be a solid action. Part of that, it's really two. It's writing up the job description, re-engaging folks, or offer description, however you want to call it. Um, you also need to have that conversation with your current client
Totally.
about what's going to happen in January. Have you thought it out? Have you thought that far ahead? Because I'm planning for my business, because they're
Mhm.
going to want to take care of you and at least figure out what's next. Um,
I don't think it's going away. I think we might just need to have a conversation about, here are the deliverables that we have achieved and how do we want to continue working forward? Is it this part of what I did, this part of, sort of like figuring out what the best fit is based on where their team is now versus where it was a year ago. So I don't want to seem like, oh, it's just going to evaporate come January 1. I don't think that's the relationship that I have with them, but it may change. And I think that that's a good thing.
well, you mentioned too that sometimes you envision that. So we talked about starting with a project as being a way into retainer if
Mhm.
somebody you meet isn't quite ready for that. Um, we also talked about what if they're done with their retainer and now it's time to have the conversation about reducing the number of hours, the number of deliverables, or what you're responsible with them, and maybe having,
Halving.
halving,
Halving.
cutting in half
There we go.
what their commitment is with you now. But that gives you room because if you take on, let's say, 2 fractional CMO clients and 5 small project clients, it could be the one-off projects. It could also be these ongoing smaller clients that you have room for, depending on what you're getting into.
Absolutely.
And then it can give you that your business is still enriched. You're not beholden to 2 clients because we don't want to get you in that point either.
Mhm.
You have a reason to continue lead generation, and you're only doing a couple launches a year because your launch is outreach to your referral network and building relationships as you go.
Yeah. I
Did I
think
say
that is so.
LinkedIn?
I don't know.
I
I
did
think you
not
just said
say
referral
LinkedIn.
network, reach out to referral network. We'll just assume that was what it was. We
I
did
did
not
not
say
say
LinkedIn.
post on LinkedIn. And the funny thing is, you're a strategist and you know people that are more entry level or lower level technicians that charge less. What if you were to assign this work of getting your pillar blog content into LinkedIn articles for you at $30? And then it's off your plate, but it's something that you can check off because LinkedIn doesn't require you to post every hour.
That's true.
Right? And that way your content's out there. It's SEO because it's being searched for, and it leads right back to your blog and what you do, maybe a sales page. So hiring that out could be a way to get that done, but off your list. And maybe they only do 5 articles.
Yeah. Just starting to get things moving in that direction, especially because of the way that SEO is changing to include more AI. It's probably worth creating some of that pillar content to say, here's why, you still need SEO in 2025 and beyond, because AI is built on the backbone of SEO. And I think there's a lot of re-education that needs to happen right now in my industry that is happening between SEO people, but not necessarily disseminating out to the general public.
Well, this could be a way of not only doing that, but let's go back to that offer that you're building. What if the pillar content has SEO in the middle, but all the things that you do as a fractional CMO are the other pieces that are tangential to SEO that you start to bridge, and then you're connecting all the things that you bring to the table and that they can hire you for back into that same conversation.
The same content ecosystem, we'll say.
Yes. So hello, that leads them right to being educated on why you're essential in their business.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Awesome. Right. Well, this has been a great conversation. You got a lot out of it. Oh, here I am, tooting my horn. You got so much out of it. I mean, action items.
You learned so much from me.
You learned so much. How can people connect with you, get into your world, and start to work with you? Because I'm expecting that you're going to give them this Google Doc one day.
It's true. Okay. So my website is loveatfirstsearch.com. If you want to get in touch with me directly, just email me. It's Meg, MEG at loveatfirstsearch.com. I don't want you to have to follow me on social media platforms. Just shoot me an email. Let me know you heard me on Tori's podcast. If you already know Tori and you're like, I don't want to just reach out to Meg directly, be like, Tori, can you introduce me to Meg? Right? I'm open to all conversations. We can hop on a call, but yeah, just reach out. We don't have to go through this song and dance. Just email me.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right, guys, that's a wrap for today. So what is the biggest takeaway that you can pull from this episode? I'd say it has to be not to avoid considering all of your options. So in the episode, Meg actually looked at what does it look like to become an employee, especially when she's owned her business for well over 10 years. She's been everything from the owner of an agency to a small solopreneur business. And now she's looking at what does it look like to grow to a different level instead of what you think about when you grow in scale, which is how do I sell what I currently have to many more people? Instead, we're taking a different look. What would it look like in your business to consider options that you would say on the surface, no way? Because when we took that time to look at considering, does she want to be an employee? We discovered that, well, not really, but there are some components of that lifestyle or of that type of job that she would enjoy. And then we also explored, what if you continue to do what you're doing today? And if you do, what about it do you love? And where is it a weakness for your business? So have you considered these different points in your business? Staying the status quo and pushing the envelope on what may or may not be possible in the economy, or switching entirely and shutting your business down to become an employee, or even what she did early on in her business, which is to take a lean founder first approach to scaling instead of the enterprise and the complexity of the agency model that she was already finding herself in. So I hope you are able to brainstorm where you are in your business and consider all of your options, because you never know where that nugget of goodness is going to come from. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Scale Right Revolution. If you found this episode helpful, you'll be blown away by what we can accomplish together. Here are 2 next best steps. Step number 1, if you want to take this conversation further, be sure to sign up for the Scale Right Revolution Superfans. This is a community of highly successful 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs, business owners, and founders who want to drive extraordinary results in their business and continue to grow at the highest level without missing out on life. This is who I send my best tips and expertise to, all wrapped up in a weekly newsletter. Recently, I shared the inside scoop on what to do when you lose sight of the big picture and aren't sure if all your hard work is moving the needle. To get access to this exclusive content, hop on over to toriboats.com/superfan and sign up. As a special thank you, you'll get your first insider scoop, access to the 5 strategies you need to do business differently if you want to reach the next level in your business without losing yourself in the process, including the key questions you should be asking yourself before making any major decision. Head on over to toriboats.com/superfan and sign up now. And number 2, if you're already on the list, then what are you waiting for? Schedule a call with me. We can figure out which of my services would be a good fit for you. I have a variety of ways to support you in helping you grow your business through a 360-degree smart strategy, plus identifying gaps and connecting the dots to a solution custom-made for you is my superpower. Hop on over to toriboats.com/services and grab a spot on my calendar at the bottom of the page. That's toriboats.com/services.